Hello there. In this video we're going to show you how you can use a grid pattern bracelet and add two different patterns to it, a zodiac Virgo and a zodiac Eastern Tiger pattern, as is shown in the screenshot there. We're also going to adjust the size of the bracelet as well. So if you start up your screen, we need to obviously go to the bracelets folder to find the bracelet itself, but if I just refresh by clicking Group Library, we're also going to use, where are we, astrological symbol, so pattern astrological. We're going to import this, rather append this zodiac Virgo pattern, and we're also going to append this zodiac Eastern Tiger pattern. So we're going to add those to our bracelet. Okay, so if we just go back to bracelets first of all, there are a number of different grid ones. Previous video you did 65mm by 3 grid pattern. I'm going to try this one, which is the 5 grid. So if we drag and drop that onto the workspace, now by 5 grid we mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles there around the bracelet. Okay, now the default size for all of our objects, our bracelet objects, is in a diameter of 65mm. So I'm going to switch that off, that inner diameter. That's the bracelet size at the moment, is the object inner diameter, and we're going to switch on 50mm, so we're going to wrap our bracelet around that inner diameter. So if we click on the bracelet, so we need to change the bracelet size from inner diameter to 50mm. Now when we do that, what we've got is a lot of overlap now on the bracelet. Now you might want that, you might want to keep that pattern, but notice the overlap is quite considerable here. It's all the way around this side and this side here. So I'm actually going to open it up again. So if I go to View and Front View, if we press the Tab key on the keyboard, I'll just remove the Properties window out of the way. Essentially we need to shorten the length of this object. So the way to do that is, if we do, well, I'll just switch on screencast keys. If I press the B key on the keyboard, and just highlight the end of this object, and then if I move it to the left, now notice I've got the proportional editing circle, and what I want to do with that is to just move it up to the center, because I'm going to have to adjust the right hand side of this object and the left hand side. Now if I move it in 1, 2, you'll see that these bars also moved in, but nothing on the other side moved in. Yeah, so we've adjusted this and this relative to the center and the one that's highlighted. So if I just go to View and Front again, if I press A on the keyboard, that will deselect those control points, and if I press B on the keyboard and draw a border or a box around those, I can do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to use proportional editing to move in this and these control points as well towards the center, and I'll move them in once, twice. If you make your proportional editing circle any bigger, the other side of the bracelet will be adjusted as well, and you don't really want to do that. You want to keep it symmetrical. So A to deselect, and if I just press the Tab key now, we'll see whether or not we've opened it up. Yes, I have. I've just got a gap there. Now if you didn't want a gap, you could modify it, change each side outwards a little bit. Okay, so you could drag this out a little bit more if you don't want a gap, but that's fine for what I want now. So what do I want to do now? I want to add in a couple of patterns, and we're going to add in this Virgo pattern here, and there's this Tiger pattern here on the right hand side. So we need to do append, and so if I go to File and Append, Go up through the menu system until you get to Groups folder. So these are all the pattern folders that are available in Fluid Designer. And we want astrological patterns. And I'm going to use this Virgo pattern 001. And as usual, we want the object. So it's the Zodiac Virgo pattern object, and we append it from the library. Now with the red line around, it's not actually highlighted. It's in the current workspace but not highlighted, so I just click on it, get the yellow line around it. Now what do I need to do to this? Well, first of all, I'm going to rotate it about the x-axis. So I need to rotate it 90 degrees so it's in the same orientation as the bracelet. So I can do that by R on the keyboard, X on the keyboard to restrict it to the x-axis, and type 90. Okay. Now if I attach that to my bracelet now, what will happen is it will appear the wrong way round. If you just look at this side here, this is on the left. If I hold down the Shift key and highlight the bracelet, go to Tools, Object Tools and Join, notice that this is now on the right. That's just a feature of the curve command. I want it on the left. Whoops. So I do Control Z to undo, put it back in the center. So what I need to do is I need to rotate this object about the Z axis, and I actually need to rotate it 180 degrees. Now I could do RZ 180, or if I just grab this with the mouse button and just drag along this bar, you can see I can change it there. So that's orientated. Now it's back to front as we look at it here, but remember the curve function will flip it around. Now I don't actually want to join these two objects together because I want to be able to move this Virgo along the bar and position it on the left of the center here. But what I also need to take into account is the thickness of this is different. This is only 1 millimeter thick, this is 2 millimeters. So while I've got the Virgo highlighted, I need to change the cross section to 1 by 1. That matches up now with the bracelet. So instead of joining the two objects together, what I want to do is use a modifier, and a curve modifier. Now remember that we've changed the bracelet from the default inner diameter 65 millimeters, we've changed it to a cross section of 50 millimeters. So that's the curve object that we want to select. Now that puts the Virgo pattern nicely in the center there, but we want to add two patterns to our bracelet here. So what we need to do is we need to move it over to the left here. So if I go to View and Front and go to Tab Mode, I want to move the Virgo object. Now first of all I need to highlight all the control points, so I can press A on the keyboard to highlight it. Now things work back to front here, so if I want to move it to the left around the bracelet, I actually need to move to the right in edit mode. So when I press the tab key on the keyboard, you'll see that that's moved it to the left of this center point. So you're working back to front here. Now that's not quite centered in there, so I need to move it a little bit more. So View and Front, tab key, so if I just move it 1, 2, I'll move it another 3, and let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, that's okay. I think that's reasonably centered now. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that position. You could of course fine tune it yourself. You could move it up and down as well if you really wanted to, but I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's my Virgo zodiac sign added to my bracelet. And now I need to add the tiger one to the other side here. So if we go to File and Append, go up through the menu system to get back to the Groups folder. We're looking for the astrological pattern, but we're going to use an Eastern pattern here. So it's the sign of the dog, sign of the cat, etc. Not cat, sorry, sign of the dog, sign of the dragon. We're going to use the tiger pattern. So it's a Zodiac Eastern tiger pattern we're going to use. And I want the object. So it's a Zodiac Eastern tiger pattern, and I append that from the library. And of course it places it in the center there. So first thing we need to do is to rotate it about the x-axis. So I can say R on the keyboard, X on the keyboard, and 90 degrees. If we look at the thickness of this one is actually 1 by 1 thick, so I don't need to adjust the thickness of that one in the way that I did with the Zodiac, in the Virgo pattern. So I don't need to adjust the thickness. But if I view this from the front, you'll notice that this pattern is going to go on the outside of the bracelet. So what I need to do is to scale it down so that it fits on the inside. So if I press S on the keyboard for scale and just move my mouse and just bring it so that it's just inside, and remember when you scale curves in Fluid Designer, do Control A and apply the scale. And what I'm looking for really is this needs to be touching the bracelet itself for it to be 3D printable, and I think that's going to be okay. I think the object is going to touch in a lot of different places. Now we could fine-tune these and change some control points. So if we went into edit mode here, we could move that. If I just zoom in, I could move that so that it overlaps a bit more. Yeah, actually I will leave it like that. Yeah, I think that's looking a little bit better. Tab key to come out of edit mode. So that will just overlap the bracelet a little bit better there, so that the object, when it 3D prints and when you wear it, it doesn't snap off. Now, we've rotated it about the x-axis, but we haven't rotated it about the z-axis. Remember that when we wrap this around the curve, it's going to be back to front, this object. So we do need to do R, Z, and 180 degrees and flip that around. Now if we now just simply wrap this, if we create a modifier, a curve modifier, and wrap this around the 50mm inner diameter, it puts it nicely in the center there. But again, we need to adjust this. Now, instead of moving it to the left, we need to move it to the right. So what we need to do is to go back to edit mode, and if we go view and front view, and if we press A on the keyboard and A on the keyboard to highlight all the control points. Now remember, this works back to front. We want to move it to the right around the bracelet, so we actually need to move it to the left when in edit mode. And you just need to have a guess at the positioning of it, and then press the tab key to return to normal mode, object mode. I think probably I'll just move it to the left a little bit more. So if I go to view and front, go into edit mode, let's move it another couple of millimeters there. Yeah, I think that's reasonably well centered now. Now this top bit is going to be attached to the top of the bracelet there. All these other bits are also touching, and I think that's positioned quite well now. Okay, so there's your bracelet. Now what we need to do to join this all together, these are in fact all curves, so we could hold down the shift key and join these two objects together, and then hold down the shift key, and let's see what happens if we join them to the bracelet. Yep, that's okay. If that doesn't work, if something goes weird, you can always convert them to meshes first of all and then join them together. But that's okay. So there's our bracelet now. So all we need to do is to export it as an OBJ file. So if we go to File, Export, export the wavefront object to the desktop. So it's a 5-grid pattern, and it's got a Virgo pattern and a tiger pattern as well. And so you export that to the desktop. And remember, always when using Fluid Designer, you must then take the OBJ file, take it to NetFab Basic, run it through NetFab Basic so that it just tidies up, fixes any issues with it, makes the file thoroughly 3D printable. There we are. So that's your finished 5-grid bracelet with 2 different patterns on it. A Virgo astrological sign and an Eastern tiger astrological sign for the year of the tiger. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thank you.